January 27th was, you know, International Holocaust Remembrance Day. So it's basically the day that Auschwitz concentration camp was liberated, and it was liberated by the Red Army, by the Soviets, who actually liberated most camps. And the Polish had the bright idea of not inviting the Russians. This is the first time this ever happens in history, right? In the last 78 years. And here's the tweet that I wrote. So today marks, meaning January 27th, marks 78 years since the liberation of Auschwitz, and Russia was excluded from the ceremony, right? This is unheard of and very insulting. The Russians, the Soviets were the first to reach Berlin. They inflicted 80% of German casualties, and they lost 27 million of their own people, right? I mean, you can just look at the World War II deaths. It's absolutely staggering, right? Absolutely staggering. So I just want to point you to this article here. This is from Reuters, and they're quoting the director of the Auschwitz Memorial, okay, and what he said the other day. And he said that basically the deaths of people in Ukraine are comparable to the suffering in World War II. He said that similar sick megalomania, similar lust for power, and similar sounding myths about uniqueness, greatness, and primacy, only written in Russian. Innocent people are dying en masse in Europe again. Look, man, I'm sorry, that's not the same thing at all. What is he saying? Like the Russians are gassing Ukrainians now? What is this? It's just not true. Like, you know, you don't have to like the Russians, but this is just ridiculous comparing this. Look, even here, they tell you very clearly, more than 1.1 million people, most of them Jews, perished in gas chambers at the camp or from starvation, cold, and disease. And remember, you also had political prisoners, you had dissidents, you know, Roma, gypsies, also in the camp. So is Russia doing that now? What is he saying? This is ridiculous. It's like they're trying to rewrite history. And I pointed this out in another example, a different incident where, you know, they were bringing up the Lend-Lease again. Okay, so Lend-Lease is the United States giving all of these weapons to Ukraine. Again, as the name implies, either lent or on lease. And the last time they did this was in World War II, and they did it for the Soviets and the British. And everywhere you read about it, they left out that the Soviets were the number 2 recipient of the Lend-Lease, like as if they hadn't fought in World War II. It is so, like, it's so childish and insulting. Really, really. This is the response from the Russians. So the Russians said that, this is, again, the foreign ministry spokesperson, said that no matter how our European non-partners contrived in their attempts to rewrite history in a new way, the memory of the Soviet heroes and liberators and horrors of Nazism cannot be erased. And she also talks about how they tried to prevent Russia participating in 2004 because of an exposition they had prepared, and they had called people citizens of the USSR. I mean, it's just historically correct. I don't know why they have such an issue with that. But anyway, I guess she's basically saying the Polish don't like the Russians. Yeah. That you know, remember when World War II started, it wasn't just the Germans who invaded Poland, it's the Soviets as well. And then they, you know, once Barbarossa started, they I guess they switched sides, so to speak. You remember, of course, the pact, the Ribbentrop Pact that they had. But again, it doesn't change the fact about the camps, right? Like, the Soviets liberated the camps. And I want to show you this quick video I found from Holocaust Remembrance Day. And here's Putin speaking. Let's see what he has to say.
Мы с вами встречаемся в преддверии Международного дня памяти жертв Холокоста, героев сопротивления. И позиция нашей страны хорошо известна. Из всех уничтоженных нацистами евреев большинство как раз были гражданами Советского Союза. И это наша общая боль. Вы знаете нашу позицию сегодня. Она заключается в том, что мы категорически против предания забвению преступлений подобного рода, которые не имеют срока давности. И делаем это и проводим такую политику для того, чтобы ничего подобного в истории человечества больше никогда не повторилось.
here, this guy, Soviet Jewish soldier David Dushman, he liberated Auschwitz by driving his T-35 Soviet tank. Do they mean T-34 or T-35? Through the barbed wire electric fence of Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp in occupied Poland, and thereby initiating the liberation. This guy's got quite a few medals, as you can see. Right? He's done his part. Let me just read the rest of this to you. So he drove his tank through the gate, allowing Red Army ground troops from 322nd Rifle Division to enter the camp. Quote, skeletons everywhere. They stumbled out of the barracks and lay among the dead. Terrible. We threw them all of our canned food and immediately drove on to hunt fascists. The badass quote. I want to show you some, it's also important to remember that the footage, a lot of the footage, not all of it, not a lot of it, all of it was filmed by the Russians. So they not only liberated the camp, they also documented the crimes. And this is, of course, very important, not just for history, but for accountability. And you can see, this is some of the stuff that they filmed when they liberated Auschwitz. And I was watching, you see this part where the women have come back in. They actually, the filmmakers, in the army, the journalists who were filming all of this, they actually asked them if they could, because when they first liberated them, they didn't say, hey, can we film you? They obviously took care of them and nourished them and gave them food and everything. And then afterwards, because also there was no electricity, they couldn't even film inside of the barracks or the huts. So they asked them if they could kindly go back in just to have it on tape, and they were kind enough to muster the energy for this. I mean, it's horrific, right? It's disgusting, and people forget how much the Soviets did. They think it's just the Americans and the British. No, it's not. It's really, you can say it's British intelligence and it's American industry and Russian manpower, but again, the Russians, they not only liberated these camps, like I said, they caused 80% of German casualties. 80. That's the overwhelming majority, right? And they also lost more than anyone. So 27 million killed. I think it's split about equally. Half civilians, half enlisted. Basically in the army, right? So I think I don't know. I find it really childish and disgusting that they're trying to rewrite history just because. Oh, by the way, sorry, I didn't want to cut off. Look at how massive this thing is. Look how massive the whole camp is. I just find this disgusting that they're trying to rewrite history. Let me give you another example. If you don't like what the Americans are doing in Iraq and Afghanistan, when there's a D-Day memorial, do you just not invite the Americans? Of course not. Like that's ridiculous, because those two things have nothing to do with each other, right? So I don't understand why there's like this new standard now with the Russians that, oh well, we don't like you, so your athletes can't compete. We're not going to invite you to commemorate the concentration camps that you liberated. I don't know. We're not even going to mention that you were a recipient of U.S. weapons during the Lend-Lease. Like, what is this childishness? It's so dramatic and crazy. Look, I want to show you also this clip here. This is from a lady named Eva Kor, and she also recalls the liberation. She was at Auschwitz.
We were liberated on January 27th by the Soviet army, and I didn't even know who the Soviet army was. But all I really cared about, that they didn't look like the Nazis, and that was good enough for me. The camp, and I think many of the Nazi camps, as well as most of Germany, there was a lot of fighting, and from end of November until the end of January, so that all of December and all of January, about 60 days or so, there was continuous bombing, artillery, and it was very clear that this could not last forever, that someday soon that would end, when we were liberated, and how that would happen, we didn't know. So for about 2 months, there was continuous battlefield sound. And one day we woke up on January 27, and it was quiet. It was very eerie to have such a quiet morning. We thought maybe this would be the day we would be free. But again, we did not know what that meant and how that would happen. So in the late afternoon of January 27, a woman ran into our barrack, yelling at the top of her voice, "We are free! We are free!" Wonderful. What does it mean? We didn't quite know that that would be all that we would hear about it. And since Miriam and I were a little bit curious, we went outside to see what was going on outside. And this is when we saw people at a distance smiling from ear to ear. They didn't look like the Nazis. We ran after them. They gave us chocolate, cookies, and hugs. And that was my first taste of freedom.
We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. Really crazy what those people went through, really.